All right, good morning. Hope you guys are having a good day. On this video, I'm going to kind of work through the assignment from Tuesday. I know some of us had some trouble with it. I'm going to try to do my best to talk through my thought process as we go. If we look at this first one here, we are asked to write a possible function for each of these graphs, so 1 and 2. Now, there is a way to do it where you have a phase shift, and you could do sine or cosine for both of these. But I'm going to try to avoid phase shifts at all possible. Okay, I don't really like doing phase shifts unless I have to. Sometimes it's necessary, but here we can avoid that. So if we look here, like I'm going to trace a little bit. If we start at the y-axis, do you see how it is above the midline? So usually we think of cosine as starting above the midline. The pattern's 1, 0, -1, 0, 1. So 1, 0, -1 is where it's at right now. Then 1, and then back up there. Or sorry, then 0, then back up there to 1. So that, what I just highlighted, is one period. Now, if we think about it, when we analyze this, normally we write what our amplitude is. That, in this case, is just 1 above and 1 below the midline. Now, our period here is pi over 2, because that's how long it takes for one cycle. As you can see right here, started at 0, one cycle finishes at pi over 2. That pi over 2, while it's important, isn't actually what we need for our function. Okay, we're going to need to figure out what the b value is. So if we think about it, pi over 2 is what we get for our period. Remember, our formula to find the period with sine and cosine is 2 pi over b. So if 2 pi over b would equal the period, our period's pi over 2. Now we can cross multiply here, and we will get b pi equals 4 pi. So if you think about it, that means that b has to be equal to 4. Okay, that's going to be important. Let's finish up. Is there a phase shift? No, we're not going to have there be one. The vertical shift is up 2. Okay, so we said it's going to be cosine. So let's write this. It's y equals cosine. Okay, we said the b value was 4, so 4x, no phase shift, and don't forget plus 2. Remember, at the front there's a 1 because it was cosine, or sorry, because the amplitude was 1. Okay, now on the second one, this one starts by going down. Once again, you can do phase shifts, but if possible, I like to start at the y-axis. That makes it easier. So it goes down, then it goes up, and then it comes back to the midline. That's one complete cycle. The period is pi. Okay, our amplitude is a little steeper this time, or higher. It's 4. It goes up 4 and then down 4, or down 4 and then up 4, whatever. Your period, we just said, is pi. So we're going to do that same approach. So we'll say that pi has to equal whatever 2 pi over b is. If it makes it easier, put the pi over 1. We cross multiply. We get b pi equals 2 pi. Therefore, we can see that b has to be 2. Divide by pi, they'll cancel out. B is 2. Now, on this, we once again are going to avoid a phase shift, and this time there's no vertical shift. Now, one thing I do want to point out, this is sine, so y equals 4 sine, but keep in mind, normally sine goes 0, 1, 0, -1, 0. Here it starts down, so that's going to be a negative. Okay, y equals -4 sine. Okay, don't forget, we found b to be 2, so 2x. Okay, and if we look, there's no vertical shift, so we are good to go. All right. So now, overall, those first two I don't think were that bad. But now we're going to get to a little bit more complicated ones. We're going to be asked to graph two periods here. So if we look at this one, let's start by analyzing it. So our amplitude is 3, but you might want to make a note. There is a flip. Okay. Your period, there's no, or the b value is 1. So that's just going to be 2 pi over 1. Your phase shift here is going to be to the left, pi over 2. Remember, phase shifts are kind of the opposite of intuition. So plus pi over 2 actually means to the left. And then finally, the vertical shift here is going to be up 2. Your interval, we take the period divided by 4. So 2 pi divided by 4 reduces to pi over 2. So we go to draw this, and I'll grab black for my axes. So I put my y-axis in. Now it's going to be shifted up, so I'm going to draw a little lower with my x-axis. And we know that the midline is here at 2, so 1, 2, okay. Now the amplitude's 3, so we know it's going to go 3 above that, 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5. It's also going to go 3 below that, so 0, -1, -2, all the way down to wait, I misspoke. It's going to be from 2, so down 3. We don't need all the way to -2. We just need to -1. That's 2 minus 3 gets us to -1. Okay, now normally when we're graphing cosine, we start at the middle, we put our 4 marks, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and we go from there. Now, if we look, our interval is pi over 2, so I fill that in, pi over 2, pi, then it'd be 3 pi over 2, and then it'd be 2 pi. Now this time it is shifted left pi over 2, so we need to go left 1 interval. So that's negative pi over 2. That's where we're going to start. So normally it starts above, but it's also flipped. So if we think about it, if it's flipped, it's 1 amplitude below the midline. Our midline is here at 2. Okay, we're going to start 1 below that right here, then up to the midline. That's our 0. Normally it's negative, but now it's up. And keep in mind, it's always just going to alternate. Midline, not midline. Midline, not midline. Okay, that's the pattern that sine and cosine both follow. You just have to decide where you start. Now, if we look here, this is a little bit more than 1 period, right? If we start here, it goes up, and that would be 1 period, but then it doesn't finish. And this asks us to graph 2 periods, so I need to extend this. Okay, so I'm going to extend that to 5 pi over 2, then 3 pi, then 7 pi over 2, and that will be enough for us. Some of you might be saying, well, why is 7 pi over 2 enough? But if you think about it, our period's 2 pi, so we need to get to 4 pi total. Now we're just short of that. We'd need 1 more mark, but we also went 1 to the left, so we'll be okay. All right, so now at 5 pi over 2, we go up here, 3 pi is right here, and finally back down at 7 pi over 2. So now we draw this in. Do your best to kind of add some curve to it. It's not going to be perfect. That's okay. Just do your best. So we draw that in, and it's going to curve back up, and there we go. Oops. That is our first one. -3 cosine of x plus pi over 2 plus 2. Now our next one. Once again, we are going to analyze it. So let's start with our amplitude. Okay. So my amplitude is 2. Okay. My period in this case will be a little different. It's 2 pi divided by 1/4. Now dividing by 1/4, that's the same as 2 pi times the reciprocal, which is 4 over 1. So that gives us 8 pi as my period. Okay. Is there a phase shift? Hopefully you know no. Is there a vertical shift? Yes, down 3. Okay. And then finally, if the period is 2 pi, that means our interval is going to be, if the period is 8 pi, that means our interval is going to be 2 pi. Now, the interesting thing about this one is it tells us to go from -3 pi to 3 pi. Once again, this is just the domain. Where does my x value go from? So the left side will be -3 pi, the right side will be 3 pi. So once again, we're going to start off. Let's draw our x-axis. Let's draw our y-axis. And if we think about it, this one starts, the midline's at -3, so that's down 1, 2, 3. Because the amplitude is 2, the highest it'll get up to is -1. The lowest it'll get to is -5. And we know our interval is 2 pi, so I go to the right. That's 2 pi. Then I'd go again. That's 4 pi. Now, if you think about it, that is already farther than we need. We only need the 3 pi, which is halfway between 2 pi and 4 pi. Okay? So now we'll do it the same the other way. We'll make a mark, 2 pi, a mark, 4 pi, and then we only need to go halfway there to -3 pi. So because of this, if you think about it, from -3 pi to 3 pi, that's only a distance of 6 pi. That's less than 1 period. So it'll look a little funny for us, some of us might think. But keep in mind, when you graph sine, normally you start, right, if there's no phase shift, on the y-axis would be 0. So if I put a point here, 0, Then 1 is one amplitude above. Then next would be 0 again. But if you look, I've already gone past. I don't need to even go that far. Okay, so if I bring up the curl and then I come and it's going to be halfway there and I can stop right there. Okay, and I don't even need this point because I don't need to go that far. Now, in reality, it keeps going forever. It does this oscillating pattern, but ours stops at 3 pi. That's kind of that domain they asked us for. Now, as we go back the other way, if we're going backwards, that'll cause us to go -1, right? So my -1 amplitude is actually down to -5. Normally, we'd be back at the midline at 4 pi. Once again, I don't need to go that far. Okay, I can just come to here and stop. I can go ahead and erase that point. So this one's like kind of funny because it's not even a full period, but that is what I asked for, so that's what I need. Okay. Once again, if you do this on the test and you don't show me what I asked for on my interval, you'll still get lots of your points. You just won't get full credit. Okay. So we want to do our best, but you still get a lot of points. Okay. So let's see how we're doing on time. 11 minutes. Okay. Good deal. All right. So graph 3 periods here. So if we look at this number 5, this next one here is asking us to graph tan. So our amplitude is 3. Once again, don't forget, this is a flip. Okay, what is your period? Remember, with tan and cotan, it's different. It's pi over b. B is 1 here, so it's just pi. Now we look, is there a phase shift? And yes, there is. It's going to go right pi over 4. And then is there a vertical shift? Yes, there is again. It's going to go up 2. Okay, so we go ahead and draw this in, up 2. So also remember with tan, like try to put it in the middle. We need 3 periods here. We can go ahead and draw this. We know it's going up 2, so 1, 2. The highest it'll get to is 3 above that. The amplitude's 3, so 1, 2, 3 above that, all the way up to 5. Now the lowest it'll get from 2 is down 1, down 0, down to -1, just like on the front. Now remember, normally when we graph tan, I go 1, 2 intervals to the right, 1, 2 intervals to the left. Okay, and we know our interval. I think I forgot to mark it, but our interval is pi over 4 because we take the period divided by 4. So that's pi over 4. Then that one's going to be pi over 2. Then this will be the -1 and negative pi over 2. Okay, now normally we're going to go there. However, we are shifting it right pi over 4. So let's put another mark here. 3 pi over 4, if we think about it. We shifted it to the right. So our asymptotes normally come down here at negative pi over 2 and pi over 2. This time, it's going to be at negative pi over 4 and 3 pi over 4. If you think about it, they're still 1 pi apart, which is good. That's 1 period apart. Okay. So now, if we go to draw this, here we go. So if we're trying to draw this, we want to think about this as tan, but it's flipped tan. Now, either way, there are always, for tan, 3 marks in between your asymptotes. Okay, the middle one will be at the midline. So here is 2. Now, normally tan goes from low to high. It's flipped, so it will start high and end low. Okay, we draw that in. Be a little curvy. We don't want to be a straight line. That was kind of straight. That's not the best. Sorry about that. That should curve in more. And then let me fix that a little. So, and then goes up to infinity, approaches that asymptote, never touches it. Now notice it asks us for 3 periods. So I want to go both directions here. You could do 2 to the right or 2 to the left. It doesn't matter. I'm just going to put 1 more on each side. So 1, 2, 3, and then the asymptote. 1, 2, 3, and then the asymptote. Remember, this one will be negative 3 pi over 4, negative pi, and negative 5 pi over 4. Going the other way, it'll be pi, 5 pi over 4, 3 pi over 2, which is like 6 pi over 4, right? And then 7 pi over 4. Okay. We know the asymptotes occur, 3 blanks in between, and then an asymptote. So we got that set up. Go the other way, got it set up. And now the final thing we want to do is let's just throw in So this will be at 5. This will be at the midline. This will be 1, -1. Okay, same again over here. 5, midline. Oops, that was a little high. Midline, -1. And we do our best to kind of curve it in. Oops, my bad. And the last one, we come down. And there we go. And you can see they would go forever in each direction, but it asked us for 3 periods up here, so we're good. We did 3 cycles. Remember, with tangent and cotangent, a cycle goes from asymptote to asymptote. Now, what we learned yesterday, cosecant and secant, that's not always the case, right? Those have 3 asymptotes to make up their cycle, okay? So if we look at this last one, it asks us to graph from -pi to pi for x, and it's 2 cotangent. So let's go ahead and graph this. The amplitude is 2. Okay, the period is going to be pi over 2 with pi over b, right? Oops, I want to put a 2 there because I know b is 2. Okay, there's no phase shift, which is nice. Okay, the vertical shift here will be down 3. It's so easy on these to like just lose track and miss one. Okay, so be careful. It's easy to like take your time and be like, oh, I need my amplitude, I need my period, but then you forget about your phase shift, you forget about your vertical shift. So write it down and then just take your time. Okay, so we know it's shifted down 3, amplitude of 2. So if we draw in our y-axis here, and then my x-axis, I want to go from -pi to pi. Okay, so this y-axis, right, represents 0. We know we need to go all the way down to -3. That's the midline. So up 2 would get us to -1. Down 2 would get us to -5. Okay, now to the right here, if our period was pi over 2, our interval is actually going to be pi over 8. Once again, it's because pi over 2 divided by 1/4, that's the same as multiplying here by pi over 2 divided by 4 is the same as multiplying by the reciprocal. So multiplying by 1/4, that gets us to pi over 8. So we go to the right, 1, 2, 3 marks, and then the 4th is normally the asymptote, right? So that's pi over 8, pi over 4, because it'd be 2 pi over 8, and then 3 pi over 8, and 4 pi over 8, which actually is pi over 2. And that's our asymptote. So I can draw that in, and we will be able to graph that one. Okay, we know it's cotan, so it's going down. Cotan, remember, behaves like tangent, so it will look like this. Go down to the right, came from up there. But keep in mind, we don't just want that one period. We want all the way from -pi over 8, from -pi to pi. So right now I'm from 0 to pi over 2. So I need to put another period here. And that actually does get me to pi. This one's 7 pi over 8. This one is 6 pi over 8, which reduces to 3 pi over 4. And then finally, this one is 5 pi over 8. Okay. And not only do we want to go that way, we can do the same thing the other way. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That gets me to -pi over 2 here. Because if we think about it, it's like negative. Each one is another pi over 8 away. And then we need to do even one more. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I know this can be tedious. On the test, I will not ask you to do something this tedious. Like, this would take a long time. But I think for some of us, this was good practice. It really made us like think a little bit. It's challenging, okay? I get it. So we draw in our asymptotes. We know there's an asymptote over here at pi, and then there's one here at -pi over 2. Remember, if you ever have trouble remembering where your asymptotes are, if you've done your interval correctly, there's always 3 marks in between each asymptote. That's how we have set it up. So if you do it correctly, you'll be fine, okay? Now I need to go, so right here, -1, -3, -5. We'll do it again, -1, -3, -5. Once again, these are not straight lines. Curve it as much as you can. Make it look a little bit wiggly, I guess, or cubic-like, as we said. I missed my dot there, but I'll just make the dot a little bigger. And the last one here, -1, -3, -5. Once again, we curve it in. And there we go. Okay. So if you need to, click back through this, watch the video again. If you have questions, please reach out. I'm happy to help you. Let's make sure Friday we come with lots of questions if we have them, and get ready to prepare for our test next week. So hope you guys have a great day. Bye.